Hi there everybody, that's right, Great and Glorious, soon to be famous one day, Nick Dutch, back on the camera again one more time. Hi there, how the heck's it going? One of those kind of like occult videos coming up for you right now, right this very minute kind of thing. Just me sort of speaking my mind about a subject I'm passionate about. And yeah, a lot of you guys know I am a experimental, experiential occultist. I do weird stuff for fun, pleasure, enlightenment, to get strange sensations, to find out more about myself, and basically just for the hell of it, you know. That's what I do, it's what I'm about. So if that freaks you out, then obviously I am sorry, but this channel's always full of a bit of variety, so just enjoy it for the variety, enjoy it for the attitude that you come forward. I mean, as I said before, can I really turn around to you and say that I'm sure or certain that spirits, angels, archangels, gods, and all the rest of it exist? No. But I can say that under some strange circumstances, some strange things occur. And therefore, I see it as being my personal journey to try and have more of these experiences and see what I can do. Or not, as the case may be. You know, you get successes and failure, and just like that guy from Mythbusters says, failure is always an option. One of the things that I've hated for a long time about people in the New Age movement is there's such a strong focus on religious culture or religious traditions that people like invent or steal from somewhere, and that's essentially where people stop. They just think like, let's talk about the tradition of how you do a candle burning or how you invoke the quarters or whatever the heck it is. And that brasses me off, because I got into all this weird heebie-jeebie stuff because I wanted some specific results, and these people said this stuff was an art and a science. So essentially, if they're going to use the word science, they must be able to apply some kind of like scientific method to their analysis and to the exercises that they do, which of course a lot of people just did not. I did a ritual last night. I mean, I did it for health reasons, thinking that if something happens then great, and if something doesn't happen then basically all I've lost is like about half an hour of my time. And what I did it based upon vaguely Wiccan ideas, vaguely Golden Dawn ideas, and all that kind of stuff, the way that people do. I felt there was a change in my state of consciousness. That's great, that's obviously a good thing. But also I was moving in and out of this like meditative, religious state of mind. And when I was in it, I could feel what felt like presences around me. But when I moved out of it, the sensation of those presences kind of like ebbed away until I popped back into that state of mind again. Almost as if these sensations were being turned on and off by a dimmer switch throughout the process of the actual ritual itself. I thought to myself, what is this about? You know, what's really going on here? Is the ritual exercise itself important? Well, possibly, to a certain degree. Obviously, it's good to have some kind of mesmeric activity, like chanting or whatever that you're doing, to try and help bring about an apparent result. Because that's like hypnotism, that helps to bring about a trance-like state, that's okay. But the trance-like states and the religious state of mind seem to somehow be qualitatively different. It was only when I was in that more religious state of mind did I get that feeling of presences around me in the four quarters, and also in the area where I was doing an invocation. Should the emphasis really be on the actual traditions of drawing pentagrams in a certain manner, using certain color candles and sprinkling salt in certain parts of the room? Or should it be more on how people develop that religious state of mind? My opinion is erring towards the latter, but there's very little information about that. And also, it's not something you can force, it's something you can bring about. But it's not really something that you can bring about aggressively or with intense concentration, because it's not that variety of emotion. There's a certain level of letting go, and for want of a better phrase, being open, as well as this strangely reverent state of mind, which is also important to it all somehow. And practice might help, but is practice the thing which will do it pure and simple? Well, maybe it won't. I mean, sure, from a neurogenesis point of view and a neuroplasticity point of view, practice would always help. When you're trying to reach a particular state of mind, you do practice it. But it doesn't feel like, it's difficult to describe, it doesn't feel like something which can come about as a result of practice. It feels like something that can come about by way of letting go gently and having a certain quantity of temporary faith. You know, you can go around buying New Age books or occult books, and most of them will be much more tradition orientated than they would be based upon something which is as important to the whole experience as actually trying to get that state of mind in place. Now, it appears to me that visualization and other things that one does when one's doing this kind of weird heebie-jeebie stuff is much more efficient or intense, or something you can really put yourself into or immerse yourself in much better than if you're just doing meditation. Now, meditation is good, and there are so many different forms of meditation which bring about slightly different states of mind, so you've got to have a repertoire in place so you can work out which one you want to go into under any specific circumstances, which is why experimentation into different varieties of meditation, whether you're tracing a labyrinth with your finger, or you're staring rigidly at a candle flame, or whether you're just doing mantra. I think mantra is probably my favorite form of meditation because it just works better, because it brings about strange states of mind much better, for me anyway, than any other method. So you've obviously got to choose the right form of trance induction. But also there's little subtle intellectual skills or emotional skills and perceptual skills which you must be able to develop with the passage of time to assist yourself in bringing this about. And that could happen through the use of some religious tradition ideas, such as giving yourself over to an apparent higher power, or alleged higher power, such as angel, God, holy guardian angel, God, demon, whatever it is that really floats your boat in like a religious and spiritual sense. It could even be just the universe, or karma, or fate, or something like that. You know, it depends upon your, what you feel most comfortable with. Because if you're going to feel uncomfortable with the ideas that you're playing around with, the internal psychological effect it's going to have upon you is truly going to suck. And that's why this is much more of a personal art form than it is a science, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think that the idea of using color or words is necessarily scientific. I feel that that might point out in a very low resolution or very grossly simplified manner certain ways in which you can use ideas to affect yourself. I mean, the tarot, for instance, you got over 70 images. Each one has a slightly different qualitative meaning, and you get a very slightly different qualitative understanding of each one as you go through the process of learning tarot in your own way, because it stops being someone else's tarot and it starts becoming your tarot. I mean, Crowley wrote about using the Tree of Life as if it was a filing cabinet. You got all the various different spheres and paths on the Tree of Life with a vague meaning which has been passed on via occult tradition, which is a suggestion, and then you try and work out which of your experiences fit onto and in all of those, so you can build up your understanding as to precisely what the various spheres on the, and paths on the Tree of Life mean, and what the colours seem to mean, and it is your own personal interpretation, and you can use that in meditation to try and make some emotions bigger and better within you, or make some emotions slightly diminished. So there's, you can use it psychologically in a kind of like an engineering manner, and yes, it's possible to get it slightly wrong on the way, but that's something you have to accept. Although I still have a big disagreement with people who use the phrase "it works," as if to say that there is a finite, specific result which is going to happen each and every single time you do a particular magical operation. There was a strange experience which happened during the ritual with the feeling of the presences appearing. And also having dreams that night that were of a quality and a style that was very unique in nature and in narrative as well, which seemed to have some kind of correlation to a certain degree with the contents of the ritual itself, which is also, there's just another dimension of the whole thing going on there. And of course, precisely what that was, who the heck knows? I mean, we could hypothesize that if there really are spirits, that they were actually trying to communicate with me during the dream and having some kind of effect upon my body, my mind, my aura, and all the rest of that. But of course that's purely hypothetical. We can't say that that is totally true. The only thing we got to go by is strange experiences and the creation of more strange experiences through the use of religious ideas, religious practices, meditation, prayer, and all the rest of that. That's basically all we've got. Alright, we can't say that because someone did a few religious exercises and they had a certain vision, that their interpretation of what the vision is actually correct under any circumstances whatsoever. We got to remember this. And when we're trying to deal with all of this strange occult stuff, remember what the YouTube user Aaron Ra said. Gods and goddesses and all that may exist, but science can't say anything about them. So we've still got to have a certain level of critical thinking that we have to apply to our own experiences. It could be hypothetically true that humans, because of our nature and desire to anthropomorphize everything and anything, because we do, when we're going into meditative and religious states of mind, we will be more likely to see a spirit in a human form, and thus it will be easier for us to assume that we're actually seeing a spirit rather than possibly an aspect of our own mind. We do not know, we cannot know. But when the ritual affects somebody else who was unaware it was being done and they report back something strange, then you get the feeling that maybe there might be some kind of interconnectivity of human consciousnesses occurring over distance, but precisely how that operates, again, we still don't know. And it's there for experimentation so that we can try and see what else humans are capable of rather than just basic physical things. I mean, if I remember it right from, I just read it somewhere, when the US military were doing their experiments into remote viewing, they discovered that, yeah, there is a result there, but they couldn't make it reliable enough for it to be used for intelligence gathering. But yet, there was a result there. So, something interesting does happen. And at this time in our history, if we take the right attitude, we could then try and treat all this weird heebie-jeebie stuff in a more scientific manner. And I seriously think that the first step is to get our use of language right and our use of ideas right, to get rid of the phrase, it works, and instead to replace that with, under some strange circumstances, some strange things happen, and to dedicate a certain quantity of our time to try and find out more about these experiences. And yes, under some circumstances we could be deluding ourselves. That's something else we have to face. And that's why I'm very critical of my own experiences after the fact. And I'm very, very critical of other people's claims to have had certain strange experiences. Because other people tend to mention their experiences in terms of what they believe was happening. For instance, they can say that they saw a ghost, therefore they saw a spirit. Whereas I personally would say that a human being reports a strange experience, which had certain characteristics, and these were the characteristics. And I think that that's a lot more down to earth and a lot more reasonable and well thought out than to say, I saw the spirit of a dead person. Does that make sense? God and or goddess and or none of the above bless. Nick Dutch signing out for now.